Hi, I'm Marci Kobayashi, and I'm back again with another excerpt from my book, Finding Yoyu. Yoyu is a Japanese term, and if you're not familiar with it, then you might want to check out one of my other videos. I'll put the link above that talks about what it means and how I discovered it. In my book, if you're new to the book, I recommend you go back and listen from one of the first excerpts. You can find them in the playlists below, grouped 1 to 10, 11 to 20, 21 to 30, and so on. If you've been following along, then you know that in the last excerpt, I was sharing about how we found out that my husband had stage 3 colon cancer. So I'm going to pick up the story from there. So here we go. When people hear that Akira is a chemo-free cancer survivor, they always want to hear more. They're especially curious about what we did first and how our lifestyle changed. I say we because Akira already had so much on his plate that summer, and if it was up to him alone, he probably would have turned to the conventional protocols. We found out about the cancer on a Tuesday. On Saturday, we met with the doctor again to set a date for surgery. The next day, Akira left on a business trip to the US for 1 week. After that, he was back for only 1 day and then gone again for another 4-day retreat with his students in Okinawa. I'm sure he thought about his body during those trips, but he didn't have any yoyu or wherewithal to do anything but follow his schedule. Fortunately for him, I've been fascinated by health and healing all my life, and I immediately mobilized. I knew my job was to research and introduce any and all solutions that would support Akira's healing so that he wouldn't feel compelled to choose a round of chemotherapy. Like in most countries, the official protocol for treating cancer in Japan includes a combination of surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation. Those 3 protocols are grouped together under one umbrella nickname, Sandai Ryoho, or literally the Big 3 method. Therefore, no one was surprised that Akira's doctor recommended surgery and was already talking about at least 1 round of chemotherapy. I was adamantly against the use of chemotherapy and many conventional treatments which rely on pharmaceutical drugs. Away from the hospital, I used the word choice a lot when we talked about Akira's health. I wanted him to remember that no matter what the doctor said, no matter what the doctor recommended, Akira always had a choice. My challenge was to introduce the other options I found and then keep my mouth shut and hold the space for Akira to decide for himself how to proceed with his recovery. It's his body, not mine, I kept telling myself. Sometimes it was painfully difficult if he was reading an article about the merits of chemotherapy or talking with a friend about what the doctor recommended. I had to leave the room in order to keep my mouth shut. Our bodies are naturally equipped with the ability to heal and restore balance. What we put in our bodies plays a huge part in this process. We can support our immune system with what we eat and drink. We can also help our bodies detoxify by what we eat and drink. So instead of dwelling on the protocols I wanted him to avoid, I tried to focus on what we could start doing immediately to help Akira's body from the inside out. I was being a little manipulative, and I knew it. Even though I talked about he had the right to choose his treatment, I gave him no choice in the kitchen. The first thing we added to his diet was essiac tea. Using herbal teas to support our body and its natural ability to heal is not a foreign concept in Japan. Like many Japanese homes, I already had a special teapot reserved for brewing such herbal teas. I had learned about essiac tea from a book by John Robbins back in the 90s when my father had cancer. Essiac tea caught my attention then because burdock root is one of the 4 main ingredients. Burdock root is a vegetable used in many traditional Japanese recipes. It looks like a hairy brown carrot, and some people say it tastes like dirt. Not to me. I loved it. Akira always teased me because I used to cook with burdock root a lot. One of my favorite dishes was kimpira gobo, a combination of thinly sliced carrots and burdock root simmered in a sweet and salty sauce with a touch of sesame oil. Yum! I cooked with burdock root so much when we were first dating that Akira finally asked me if I had anything else in my repertoire. I trusted that essiac tea would be a good starting point for Akira since he knew what burdock root was. He didn't question me either. which was good because there wasn't much information about EXCERPTS tea in Japanese. However, I found a ton of information in English about the Canadian nurse Ren Case and how she brought the tea into popular use in the 1950s and 60s. EXCERPTS is the nurse's last name, spelled backward. Ever since Nurse Case passed away, there had been controversy over who had the original recipe, where it originated, and which recipe was the best. For me, having the exact original recipe wasn't as important as finding a way to get the tea for a reasonable price so Akira could take it long term. At the time, there was only one brand available in Japan, and it was sold pre-brewed in a bottle. It cost anywhere from $50 to $100 for 1 liter or 32 ounces. Even at the lower price of $50, the bottled tea was too expensive. We couldn't afford it because one bottle only lasted a few days if you took the aggressive dose recommended for people who had been diagnosed with cancer. Instead, we opted to buy the tea in bulk from the US and brew it at home. A 3 to 4 month supply was going to cost less than $200, including international shipping. Even better, I arranged to get the first batch for less by having it sent to one of Akira's colleagues who worked at a community college in Washington State. Not having to pay for international shipping meant I could order even more tea. Less than a week after his colonoscopy, Akira was on a plane for Seattle. 3.5 pounds of ground organic EXCERPTS tea were on the way to Seattle too. I was proud of myself. I was on a mission to block out everything that didn't matter and focus 100% on helping Akira get well. During the day, I blocked out any inner dialogue and kept myself busy researching and ordering books for Akira to read when he got back. However, I couldn't ignore my thoughts in the early mornings, especially that week Akira was in the US. In those quiet hours before Oto-san got up, I had time to think about what was happening. And when I was really quiet, I could admit I was scared. I realized my world had once again shifted. I remembered back to that day in December, barely 8 months before, when we walked into the hospital and saw Oka-san. Even though her surgery had been successful, she never fully recovered. We knew we couldn't leave her or Oto-san alone anymore. Suddenly, in a few short hours, we shifted from being a family of 2 on vacation visiting parents into a family of 2 providing care for 2 dependent adults. Fast forward to August, and the situation with Oka-san and Oto-san was no longer acute, or at least I couldn't allow it to be. With Akira's diagnosis, my attention immediately shifted to him. I needed him to be well. How could this be happening? First Oka-san's surgery, then Oto-san's Alzheimer's, and now Akira's cancer, all in the same year. What were the chances? And what did it mean? How did I fit into the picture? What was my role in all of it? Okay, I will stop there for today. I do want to share more about some of the process that I went through internally. The things that we did for Akira, I'll share a little bit more about that, but that's really more of his story. And what I can do here in this space in my book is share my story as the caregiver for him, and how I supported him to make the choice and to keep going on chemo-free recovery from stage 3 colon cancer. And I can say that it's now 2021, and that's 6 years later, and he is still cancer-free and healthier than ever before. So that's his story though, and I will stop here for today. If you're not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button so you'll know when the next video comes out. I usually post something once a week, and I hope you'll be back again next week to hear the next section.